Hello everyone and welcome to this week's Q&A live stream. I am your Torva Skinny Jeans host, Mods Sarnie, and I am joined by none other than the wonderful Mods Arcane, Mod Husky,
Hi.
and a nice new face to the stream, my fellow CM, Mod Light. How is everyone doing?
Hey.
Arcane, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm really tired. I'm gonna be that really annoying British person and be like, it's too cold now, it's too dark, I'm tired. Even though last 3 months ago I was complaining about it being too hot, but it'd be how it be.
It is, man, though. Like, I blinked at about 2-3 o'clock and it was like completely pitch black and I was like, what the hell is going on? Yeah, it's crazy. Husky, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I echo Arcane sentiments there about being tired, but mostly just the last few days have just been design work, which is really fun, but also like you go from having these crazy cool ideas and all the things you could do, and then let's go write it down in a document and get like a technical implementation and figure out how we can sell it to producers and make sure every other team knows. And it suddenly goes from really want to start working on this now, I'd love to work on it, but like that be how designs be, as Arcane put it with the weather, you know.
Yeah. I imagine it's like not infuriating, but it's just like wanting to get into like the deep design work now. It's like just that next hurdle to get over.
It literally is swings and roundabouts during design and after project release. You're so hype, and then like you're just like the whole time you're like, I can't wait to design the next thing, right? You know, it's just the whole cycle of content development.
Indeed it is. And finally, Mod Light, first appearance on the stream. How you feeling?
Hello, I'm bricking it, but I'm really good, and it's so nice to be on the stream finally. I've been behind the scenes a lot of the time, so yeah, it's great to be here. Hopefully I can contribute something, we'll see. And yeah, really excited to meet everyone.
Yeah, it's very good to have you on. I think we've been talking for months about you coming on at some point, and it was just like, hey, why don't we make that today? It was like a very spur of the moment decision, but like it's good.
It was a very last minute decision.
But again, not a regrettable one. So we also have the lovely Mod Druid behind the scenes, as always. If you have any questions you want to ask the team, make sure to @OldSchoolRS. Now, today's stream will be looking at your questions from our updated rewards blog on Next. We're really pleased with the feedback we've heard from you so far, and we're working on an update to the Next blog with some minor tweaks and getting the poll questions in. You can expect that soon. But before we get into any of that, of course, and the usual JMod grilling of Mod Light, let's go through some announcements. So, ! Game update. This week's update brings some small changes to the wilderness and quality of life changes. We're continuing to work as quickly as possible to bring out all the wilderness changes that we know you're eagerly awaiting on. In the meantime, why not try out the Rev Caves and see if you can grab yourself some decent loot. ! Economy. Whether you're selling your PVM drops, stocking up on your next PKN trip, or simply in the market for skill boosters, the economy underpins everything in old school for non-iron players, and we've been investigating ways we can keep it healthy for many years to come. From item sinks to literal gold sinks, read the previous blog with !economy for all the info on our proposed changes. ! Melvor Idol. What do you AFK when you're playing old school? The obvious answer is Melvor Idol, a feature-rich RuneScape-inspired idle game that's now been supported and published by Jagex partners. Find out more about the new partnership with Melvor Idol. And just before we get onto the last one, the Gillinor Gazette, the November one, is out now, so you can check that out. I won't be making a command shortly for it, but you can check it out. It should be the latest news post on our news page, so go and check that out, see what you think, read the new post bag from the hedge, and more. And finally, ! Merch. RuneScape, the first 20 years goes on sale at all good bookstores this week. If you missed out on the deluxe edition of the 20 years of RuneScape book, don't panic. You can now get your hands on this swanky red standard edition with the same 224 full color pages filled with illustrations and interviews. Definitely something for the Christmas list. Awesome. That's all the announcements out the way. Let's get into the grilling of Mod Light. So, Mod Light, how are you?
So,
Oh, go on. On.
No, I was just repeating you. I'm really awkward like that. Go ahead.
It's cool. It's cool.
Great
Why don't
start.
you tell us a little bit about yourself then?
Yes, it's totally not like I've written notes here to help me to talk about myself. But no, I'm Mod Light. I'm a community manager for Old School RS. I've been here since January. I've been here since January, yeah. And I've been involved in lots of community-related stuff. So you might have seen me pop up on Twitter a lot, asking for your feedback. And in different places. Sometimes I hang around on Twitch and lurk on people's streams. But yeah, a lot of my role revolves around communicating feedback back to the team. So I read a lot of Reddit and basically communicate what needs to be changed from game updates back to the team. If you've ever hated a question on the live stream, that's entirely my fault because I pick the questions. So yeah, just lots of community related stuff, and hopefully more to come if I don't blow it this stream.
You won't. You're doing well so far. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience with RuneScape and Old School in general?
Yeah, so I played RuneScape when I was a kid, when it was RuneScape, as like a social game. So a lot of my friends and I would play after school. My biggest achievement was getting 99 fire making. I got it solely in Varrock, so I was like a Varrock locked fire maker back in the day before it was cool. But nowadays, like, fire making has totally lost all of its like prestige and stuff. So yeah. But no, I don't really have too much time nowadays to be playing hardcore. But I am very involved in like the social side of things, and I do want to learn a bit more about the game as time goes on from you guys in the community. So yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So what's your favorite thing about the game, and what would you say your least favorite thing is?
Well, favorite thing about the game is the community. I think the people in this game are what makes it so successful. I still remember all the usernames of people I used to play with in the past, people who helped me out a bunch, and I often try adding them to my friends list just so I can see if they've come back to the game. So yeah, that's my favorite thing about the game. Did you ask least favorite? Because I know that there is a question about least favorite thing as well.
Well, what is your least favorite thing?
So I really struggled to come up with an answer for this, but I would have to say graceful as like a mechanic, or basically something that you equip to deal with the fact that run energy is a thing in the game. I'm not keen on it as an idea, just because it removes a lot of like fashionscape opportunities. I see a lot of people using graceful in the game, and back in the day when I played more frequently, I would see like so much more fashion stuff going on. So I think that's the only kind of gripe I have with the game.
You telling me you don't do rooftop agility courses with like the clown equipment and the cursed banana attached? Because like you're doing it wrong, I think, if not.
No, I'm one of those people that still do like gnome agility courses. Like I'm so noob in that sense. I will just do like really random things.
Cool,
Not efficient
cool.
at all.
So the last one then, which is like the biggest question, if you could add one thing without a poll and remove one thing out without a poll, what would they be?
If I could add one thing to the game, I would recommend adding dungeons. I think the concept of dungeons is really cool, and it's not really something I came across very frequently in Old School. So I think that kind of like mid-level, repeatable content that kind of is a segue into higher end content would be really cool for like more casual players, and you know, something that you can do kind of repeatable on a daily basis is quite fun. I also struggle a bit with high-end PVM. I find it really daunting, so I'd like a Peepo dungeon to do that isn't really a raid. It's more of like a just fun thing to do with your friends. Doesn't take too much effort kind of thing. If I could remove one thing, I would remove the Mage Training Arena. Not out of anything for myself, but it's because I've seen so many posts on Reddit about it. That's a very, whatever that was, Arcane, very cool. So yeah, cool. I'm assuming it's something to do with Twitch chat, but I'm not seeing Twitch chat at the moment. Anyway, yeah, Mage Training right now. Cool.
Awesome, good stuff. You can follow more of Modlight over on her Twitter by using !newmod. So go and give her a follow, show some love, because we're all nice here in chat. I can see. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Modlight. It's a pleasure to have you on stream at last.
Oh,
I imagine you're glad that grilling's out the way now.
Yeah, my heart can settle down a little bit, and I can tune into the questions, so that's cool.
Good stuff. Right, before we get on to the questions about Nex, I know behind the scenes we want to do a little transition, right? Over to some RS20 book footage. Hey, look at that. So we have partnered with Dark Horse Comics to bring you RuneScape for the first 20 years, a lavishly illustrated, full-color, hardcover book filled with insider info about the best game in the world. This one, of course. Dark Horse recruited Alex Calvin, the founder of PC Games Insider, to interview all of your favorite JMods, past and present. They also poured over 20 years worth of illustrations, concept art, and various other bits and bobs to create an illustrated history of the development of the games over the past 20 years, which is crazy just thinking about it. Covering both RuneScape and its precocious younger sibling, Old School RuneScape. The main edition, as we said, comes in a swanky red cover and is now available in all good bookstores. So you can check them out across Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, McNally Robinson, or your friendly local bookstore. So yeah, I know Mods doing a great job just flicking through the pages and showcasing some of the art that's in store. Oh, is that Sphere on Sphere, I've been told. Sphere hand reveal indeed. Cool. Have we got some more pages, Mod Druid, to show? Let's go. Hey, there we go. So you can have some more detailed imagery. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to pick it up, go and get it now. Why not? If any of you have some questions about the book, I do have an FAQ on the side. So if you want to at Old School RS and ask us anything about the book, along with the next stuff, we'll try and pick up some questions at the end. Awesome. So shall we get into the bulk of why we are here, which is Nex? How do you guys feel the recent blog went down?
Good. Better, I think.
Yeah, it was a pleasure reading the feedback for this round. And I really appreciate everyone who left their feedback because it was really helpful.
Honestly, I don't think I can stress enough. Happy players, happy devs, happy everyone. You know, like we always put out these blogs and we're like, hope we've got it right, because like it's so hard releasing it, because like you release a blog and people go, oh, like yeah, that's okay, maybe a few tweaks. Okay, make the few tweaks, and like you're almost launching a blog into a new environment because people change their mind like between blog iterations. So yeah, it went really well.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the recent beta, I imagine that would have thrown some other like suggestions or opinions in between everything. But yeah, I think overall it looked pretty good. So I think we should just jump straight into the questions. And the first one is from Yeldar B25 and asks, "Are these Torva skinny jeans?"
They are getting changed.
There we go.
These are the updated images we got sent by Mod Skylark, so hopefully they're a little bit more
thicker,
as the kids would say. And we'll make sure to include these in the updated blog when it's updated. So hopefully you guys enjoy the thickness, the peach.
There's no satisfying everyone. Some people like thin plate legs, some people like thick plate legs, you know, just...
Yeah, why aren't there plate legs for everybody? We want to cater to everybody. Awesome. Yeah, you shouldn't have to wait too long.
Though, at the comment. Sorry,
Yeah, the
I just
comments
couldn't
were
stop
pretty funny.
laughing. The anime picture like ended me. But yeah,
Was that the one that responded to the tweet I put out?
it was just I was floored by that, and then I saw a comment that was like "live, love, laugh, leggings," and I was like, "The new leggings by Torva." It just sounded so good, but no, it was. We're not doing that. So.
You always said that like a perfume advert, you know, like, get these new leggings by Torva, you know?
I want some like slow fades between different shots of the Torva skinny jeans and plate legs.
But yeah, it's I love the new look.
Awesome. Yeah, you shouldn't have to be waiting too long for that new blog. As we said, there'll be poll questions included as well, so it should be coming. I would say early next week, early next week. Is that what
I'm aiming for Friday, but realistically, it could be early next week. We'll see. We'll see how fast I can work.
Awesome.
Get that update for you guys.
Stuff.
Let's go.
Good stuff. So the next question is from I've Been Discovered. They ask, what has the team taken away as feedback from the community discussion on power creep?
Sentiment's changed over the past 6+ years. I think it's just a bigger take, and I guess it's taken us a bit of a while to realize that, where everyone's actually comfortable with the idea of power creep, you know, when appropriate, as opposed to previously it's been a bit more touch and go. Like, don't get us wrong, power creep has happened in the wider scheme. Like, Twisted Bow was a massive upgrade, Blowpipe was a massive upgrade. So it's not the actual power that's the problem, but it's when it devalues parts of the game. Blowpipe didn't really devalue any part of the game. Twisted Bow didn't devalue any part of the game. Like, there's no other piece of content that got hurt negatively because of that. Well, this is kind of the first time where we're like, I'm going to actually be a bit smarter about this. We can't just release a science.
I think as well, like, players are fickle sometimes, right? You know, like, it is really just a case of opinions change, and sometimes it's quickly. And there was a huge sentiment change, like, over this. Like, we want this, and like, we're not opposed to it. But like, at the same time, like, we had a lot of internal concerns about like having an upgrade to Bandos, right? Is it an upgrade in strength and defense? So, okay, it's creeping on Inquisitor a bit, maybe. Is it creeping on Justiciar a bit, right? These are genuine concerns that we had about devaluing these pieces of content. And I think even Arcane was saying at the time, is +6 strength enough? Like, are we just going to put like +6 strength, and people are going to go, no, we want like 10, 12, and in which case, like, these do get majorly devalued. But then, like, we put this blog out, and like the players are saying the exact same stuff, like, oh, what does this do with Inquisitor? And I think, like, when we spoke about it a lot internally, it was just like, if we do this and we make it best in slot, like, this is a step up, right? It is going to devalue things of the previous like level requirement, because it is like it's level 80 required armor. It's not 70, it's not 75, so that's almost inevitable. But my opinions on it have always been just like, if that's what the community wants, that's fine, and we'll just do our best as developers to try and not devalue content, because we don't want, like, in, like, you know, say like 4 or 5 years time, we're on like some number of raids in the future, and maybe we're considering level 90 gear to you guys, and you guys just get to skip like all the old content because there's no reason to go back. That's what we kind of want to avoid, right? And we're not close to that, and this wasn't like a huge concern with it. It's just something that we're always cautious about, right? And I think it's correct to be cautious about it, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how will Torva compete against Inquisitor?
Inquis still has its place. It obviously creeps on it somewhat, and there's going to be some places where Inquis was barely worth using before, where Torva is just going to be replacing it in that regard. There's still places where that 40-odd accuracy is just way too good to pass up. I think Nightmare is probably one of them, and like CM Tecton. Obviously, more things can be introduced in the future as well, but Inquis is still in a decent place, albeit slightly less so.
The thing Inquis does as well that Torva doesn't do is it makes Crush Scythe viable. So like Crush Scythe was never really a thing because the accuracy is so low on the Crush style despite having it. And Inquisitor kind of enables that. Like that 40-ish, I can't remember the exact number, accuracy is pretty huge for that. And just being able to use the Scythe at a piece of content drastically increases the amount of DPS you can do at that content. So we think it is definitely going to have a use. And like the other thing that might matter is, I think you mentioned, like if something has really high Crush accuracy, it's important. But if content is just doing like, not like, Torva might see more use if the content is doing like really high like amounts of melee and range damage, for example, right? Where Torva is like definitely way squishier. So there's definitely going to be a lot of give and take on those armor sets and different pros and cons for each of them, right?
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Next one we have another, I'm guessing, redacted name because there's no name here. Naughty player. But why not add both?
A weird name.
Why not add both the Zaryte bow and the Zaryte crossbow? Failing that, will you be adding the Zaryte bow as a reward from future content? It was a very fun weapon to use.
Similar to the whole opinion of what are the other two armor sets, right? Like why not Verus, why not Pernix like it used to be? And I just don't think it's good to have a boss have so much best in slot come from it. Like even as it is right now, like it's got 3 pieces of melee equipment, a crossbow, and gloves. They're all best in slot upgrades. That's pretty nuts. It's already borderline too much, to be honest, but you guys wanted it, and if you're happy with it, then it's fine. And the content's hopefully going to be challenging enough to deserve that. So I really don't think it needs more. We're already borderline too much in that regard. We are considering Zaryte bow from a future reward, such as potentially TOA. It still fits lore-wise. So we wouldn't even necessarily need to reskin it or anything like that. But yeah, I think it was really nice to hear that the concept works, the idea of that bow. And I do think if we do try to reintroduce it, it'll be changed slightly. There's certain things we didn't like about it, and players gave some valid feedback on how it worked. But it was really good feedback to hear that the concept was fun and it felt good, because that's the most important thing for any endgame weapon.
I think after the beta as well, when players tested it, they had a lot of fun trying use cases for it. So that really made us happy. We were like, oh, that's great. They're starting to really experiment with it and stuff. So I'm sure that if we find a suitable piece of content, we can definitely revisit it. That's the vibe I get anyway from the team.
Yeah, I think it really showed how useful the beta was, because the first blog before the beta, everyone was just like, this bow is awful, like what's the point in it, like why are you proposing this at all? Like there's pretty much no positivity for it whatsoever. But then the beta comes around and people start experimenting and actually see like where it's useful and how it works. It really shows how useful those betas are and how important just having a bit more of an open mind is, because as a developer, it's very easy to understand where your item's going to be used because you're designing it in the first place. Like you already have a lot of the use cases in mind, but as a player, you're not necessarily gonna. We don't communicate that to you. We just say, here are the stats. This is what it does. I'd really like us to put a bit more effort in terms of like, oh, this is the kind of content you might use it at, and then maybe that can get the players' minds going a bit, and and they'll start thinking a bit more about its use cases, and not fully depending on the beta. Because I don't think a lot of people end up using the beta.
Yeah, it's definitely something as CM I've raised this with you, Arcane, that it's something, the whole beta process as a whole, and how we communicate how effective weapons are, especially ones like these that are going to be end game weapons, how we can communicate that better for you guys and how we can get feedback more efficiently from you as players, because that's what matters the most. Like we can get feedback well now, but can we improve it? Because I think we can.
I think as well, like we were kind of talking about it a bit before we put the blog out of it, the poll, like, oh, would it be cool if it was a crossbow? Because we always do bows. And I know that's kind of like a really small nitpicky point, right? And then we kind of talked about like, oh, like, you know, it would be really cool if, you know, it was an upgrade to the ACB, right? You know, and we had that sort of same vein of, you know, when we were looking at the new rewards and we revisited it all, it was like, well, we've got this, you know, breaking down Bandos and stuff. It'd be really cool if we had an attachment to the ACB and they're all tied in thematics to the God Wars. And not every player cares about thematics, but it does just fit into a pretty cool point where like it is also going to be we're bringing out like a pretty good use case for the crossbow with the content at the same time. And I think there were a lot of cases where the bow just didn't have many use cases, right? Like, you know, you see this idea that, oh, I hit 2 or 3 targets at a time, and it's really, really good and really strong. But I think it was mostly just like Inferno, BA, maybe like minor things like the Nihilus at the Maiden Room, and maybe the Nihilus room itself. But like, I think there's room to look and see where that fits in a bit better. But like, I can't echo enough that like it was really fun to use, and that's good. That means we're not scrapping it, and that, you know, that's why Arcane said that we're looking to see if we can make changes to it for TOA.
I think one thing I also noticed is that if we're, and this is just something I've observed from a community perspective, but if we've received like overwhelming feedback about something in kind of a negative light, we will just straight up make changes. So keep in mind that when you're leaving feedback for something, like try to make it as accurate as possible to really explain why you don't like something, because if you do like something but you just want something tweaked, or you like the idea of something, we would like to know that. That's useful information for us to know, rather than just saying that you want something scrapped altogether. This is just generally what I've noticed, is like it's hard for us to pick out what you want sometimes. So like try to help us to make the changes if we need to.
Yeah, as much as it's fun to either jump on the bandwagon of whatever's going on or to meme the hell out of something, like for us especially, the more constructive and, you know, specific, the better, and then we can make proper changes that are going to make, you know, hopefully the majority of you happy. Cool. So the next question we have from Night Echo 12 is, I love the idea of breaking down equipment. Will the same concept be used in future for other sets of armor?
Maybe. I think it's just going to be a case-by-case basis. It's obviously a good option, but I don't think we want to just, every time we introduce an armor set, the go-to is like, okay, we break this thing down into some new item, and then you combine it. I think it'd be lazy to just use it as a default for everything. Where appropriate. There's also other ways you can do it. It's generally a thematic thing, right? There's no real difference between just combining 2 items and having a process in between and making skills relevant in terms of the actual output. But you want to make it feel fitting to the game itself.
I think it's the first time since Serb that we've done it with both items being tradable. Right? I mean, we kind of did it with the Avernic Defender. And I suppose like the Toxic Trident. It's just like interesting design, I suppose, to see how this plays out with huge big ticket items. Dragonhound Land. So yeah, we've definitely done it in the past. It seems to go down fairly well at holding the prices. I mean, like Zamorak Hasta is like a great example of that, right? That thing has kept some pretty decent value and is basically carrying Krill's money-making method by itself, right? As a result of that. And I think it would be a shame to see like no reason to go back and do this old content for it. So, but I agree, it gets really weird if like, okay, we're making a new thing after Torva, and then you need Bandos to get to Torva, and then another thing at top, and then something above that, and then you add to this huge chain of like components that are stacked on top of each other. There is a point where that just feels a bit ridiculous. Like, oh, cool, I got this new drop from a boss. Now let me go back and get this thing, and let me go back and get this thing, and let me go back and get this thing, right? I think we're probably quite far off doing that, though, right?
Just end up fusing all your weapons into just one giant, massive sword that just does everything.
It's not a bad idea. I'd be down.
The next question we have is from the 4th Stapler. The proposed Torva Helm and the Justiciar Helm have roughly the same defense bonus, despite the blog stating the Torva's defense should fall between Bandos and Justiciar. Is this intentional?
Kind of.
The first 3?
Yeah, I also thought that as soon as I...
Oh, right.
What happened to the first 3 staples?
There just really wasn't a lot of leeway between SERP and Justiciar. They already had basically the same defenses. So, tier A armor generally needed to have higher defense for it to make any sense. I don't think it's wrong for them to have fairly close defense, because at the end of the day, Torva's tier 80, Justiciar's tier 75. Justiciar still has a lot of prayer, it has slightly different negatives, and overall, it still is slightly higher defense. But yeah, it is very close, admittedly. But Justiciar has a set effect, Torva doesn't. I don't think it hurts either item much, but yeah, I do wish that the gap was slightly bigger, so then it felt a bit more appropriate. But too late for that now. Can't really just buff Justiciar for the sake of this change.
Speaking of the Torva Helm, I did see, I came up in chat a while ago, and I've seen it a bit like, oh, why does the helmet have way more strength than the chest plate, and that feels really weird. And then my question is like, isn't that how all helms are in our game? Like, Slayer Helm is like ridiculous amounts of strength when you consider what it actually is. Like, current Bis Helm is +6, but current Bis Chest is +4. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense to me, at least. I don't see any reason why Torva chestplate should have more strength. I mean, chestplate and legs are mostly for the defense, right? You know, if you think about armor sets, but...
Cool. Thank you all. The next one we have is from God Megusta. Damn, I haven't seen that in a long time. What about multiplying the components you get from Bandos, Tassets, and chestplate by 10 times as well as the resource cost? That way, Bandos Boots could still have a smaller token value of one component without making it go-to option.
We did talk about this a lot, because I quite like the idea of making Bandos Boots slightly more desirable, right? Because the important thing is General Guardor has items of value. It's not necessarily Tassets needs to have value or BCP. It's just Bandos as a whole. So say BCP and Tassets lowered in price, but then Boots went up because you could degrade it into a component as well, then that should be sort of okay. But it gets kind of unpredictable and kind of dangerous, where Bandos Boots would have to almost 15-20x in value for anyone to ever want to sync Tassets or chestplate. And then what about if it just never hits that point? So people just only sync Boots forever. Then now Tassets and chestplates aren't being sunk at all, and demand for chestplate and Tassets just goes down because people are using Torva instead. And demand goes down, and obviously price goes down. And that's kind of what we wanted to avoid. So there might have been some really strict way to do it, but it's too risky, and the benefit just wasn't really worth the risk here. Tassets and chestplates, we wanted to preserve value. And then there's the concerns of obviously nowhere near as big of a deal as that, the whole economic concern, but just smithing down one skirt like Tassets or chestplate into like 10 of this material in your inventory feels kind of weird. It just like it explodes in your inventory effectively. Doesn't really feel right. Obviously, you can make it stackable, blah blah blah, but yeah, not perfect.
Yeah, I raised the same idea internally, and I've been convinced by Arcane and Kieran and stuff. I mean, ultimately, if your goal is to preserve the price of 2 items, why complicate it by bringing in a third that is awkward and weird and potentially going to cause problems, right? Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Cool. The next question we have is from Wampuscape. The Nihil Shards Potion seems pretty underwhelming, and the defense debuffs seem unnecessary. In what situations would it be beneficial to use this potion?
Well, it is effectively just a better magic potion that also restores prayer. It's the magic equivalent of a Zaryte brew, right? It has its use case. It doesn't need to be crazy strong. Like, this isn't just because it's an endgame monster. It doesn't. Everything it releases doesn't have to be this like endgame meta-defining thing. I think it's just introducing a nice little new potion, another way to maybe passively get some Herblore XP. Maybe it'll become a decent way of training Herblore if a lot of people do Nex, and Nex drops a lot of these shards. Maybe that +6 instead of +4 will make it so people actually kind of want to use that Azor if they can't afford an imbued heart. Like, you don't really care about the stats that are getting subtracted too much. Like, you don't really care that your attack and strength get lower or anything like that, right? Azor. So maybe it'll be a nice little potion there. I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, for reference, just looking at a max hit of a Sang with no actual +% magic damage, right? It starts off at 32, and at 104, it's 33. Magic Potion doesn't... 102 to 104. So Magic Potion kind of gets you there. This makes it last longer, and that's the biggest criticism of, like, sort of like, people use range pots all the time, but they never use magic pots because, like, it just feels like such a small increase in max hit that doesn't last a long time. This will help. I'm sure there's also thresholds and breakpoints where it might just actually give you an extra max hit over a normal magic potion. I haven't run the math. Someone might tell me, no, Husky, you're full of crap. But like that's the general idea. And even if it doesn't give you a max hit increase, right? Preserving the max hit increase for longer is still valuable, right? So, yeah, you know, it's an alternative to getting a quite expensive item. I don't know. I don't know the price of our heart right now.
Right, 20, 30 mil.
I mean,
Nothing wrong with
Blaze
fleshing out
already-
the earlier levels.
Yeah, don't worry, Husky. Or Aze is already calling you out in the chat, so he's got you covered.
Oh, he knows what I think of him.
That's so ominous.
Better be careful, it's going to be added to the drama calendar.
Husky versus Aza. Cool. The next question, which I know is something that came up in our recent discussions as a team, Rainbark asked, is Torva going to be storable in the POH?
Currently, no. Bandos isn't. We were having discussions of this internally. I don't think we just need to add everything in there, especially if it's an item that people aren't really going to store. Like, why are you going to store your Torva pieces? Like, you're going to be putting it in and out of your bind constantly. I don't think we should be defaulting to putting everything in there. I think for maybe niche things that you get out every now and again, like maybe a clue item or here or there, I think it's appropriate. But for items that you're regularly putting in and out of the bind, I just don't think it needs to be in there at all. I don't like the idea that every item that we release from now until the end of time, you can store in your POH. That seems like a silly thing to do. So I'd rather default to no unless it feels appropriate.
I also don't know if this request came from UIM, because then that's the obvious reason, right? And I think that's also something where I don't think we know the answer to that, right? There are a lot of high-level UIM that think that, you know, some people on that side will say, yes, give us a way to store our best in slot equipment. We still want to get all the best in slot equipment. And others will say, no, part of the fun is making the best arsenal you can with the slots you have. And I'm actually sure Ultimate Iron Man are going to run into a critical mass problem at some point where there's so many PVM drops and they want them all, and maybe they'll have to choose. I think that is kind of the point of the mode. And if we did want to do it for just UIM concerns, I'd rather do a poll to UIM, right? I don't think it needs to right now just because Bandos isn't, right? You're not going to want this and Bandos, you know? You're going to replace your Bandos with Torva, so...
Yeah.
Just want to add as well, it's something we'll put a little piece about in the updated blog, and we'll be very open to the feedback from the Ultimate Iron Man community a little bit later down the line.
And for what it's
Thank you,
worth,
everyone.
if we did make it storable for Ultimate Iron Man purposes, there wouldn't be a reason to not just make it storable for everybody, right? We don't tend to do things like only ults can store it and nobody else can. I just don't see the use case for most other people with us giving more bank slots. You know, do you want to store your second and third specifically only in your POH and not with a stack of the rest of the things in your bank? POH storage makes a lot of sense for things you don't want to keep in your bank all the time, like your treasure trail items, you know? So...
Thank you, everyone. The next question we have is from Dustine, by the way. The breakdown of Bandos items to get Bandosian components and using those for better gear is at a very basic level, then Invention skill from RS3. Have you guys thought about seeing how players react to that? It seems like it'd be very healthy for the game, and if pitched right, I think players might go for it. I'm a big fan of Invention as a great item sync and allows another dynamic to the game. New chat was going to pop off as soon as RS3 was mentioned, but
I think most of our players agree Invention is good for the economy, so, and for helping the price of items. So copying an idea of that and doing this, most players are going to agree is a good thing. Then you've got the players who think, because it's a good thing and I really want the skill, let's do Invention. And then you've got players who say, I don't want a skill, so never do Invention. And then you've got some people who say, I want a skill, but not Invention, right? I'm not opposed to polling something like Invention if that's the route we wanted to go down. I slightly just don't want to copy skills from the other game, though. I mean, like, it's always the same ones that come up. It's like, oh, can you do Invention? Can you do Dungeoneering? Can you do Sailing and Artisan, the ones that we failed? Warding probably comes up the least. And I think they've got another skill we don't have. I can't remember.
Wow.
Divination, that's the one. I don't see people ask for that often. But yeah, so, like, you know, new skill discussions are new skill discussions. I know it's still something the team would like to do at some point in the future, if we can. It's definitely something that I know is being thought about, how we want to go about doing that sort of thing. It's not an easy topic to broach, and I don't think we're going to get a lot of answers out of a Q&A segment until we have like more official communications and blogs about what we might want to do or might not want to do. And it's definitely something that I think if we did do, I'd want the community involved like almost every step of the way. I think the most exciting thing about a new skill, and I'm sure I've said this before, is why don't we just get a new skill that's literally designed by the community? It's use our poll system and our community engagement to its fullest and create something that they love, if our community wants a new skill, which is the first question.
Yeah, I think you're right, Husky. It's definitely the best way to go about it, because it's a big thing. It's a big thing. We haven't had a new skill since we started, so we haven't brought anything else from RS3 over. So yeah, that community intertwined created skill would be amazing, and it would be a not a lengthy process, but it would definitely be a process where we'd keep going back and forth. It wouldn't just be like, hey, this is it, okay, cool, that's that, it's either yes or no. It would be a back and forth process, I think, if we were to do one. I think it'd be cool. Awesome. The next question we have is from Insomnia Fueled, who says, in pre-EOC, wherein the robes allowed you to skip getting kill count for Nex. The blog says you aren't going to do that, and I was wondering if that decision could be changed so they can skip kill count. If not, why did you decide to make this design choice?
So, a bit of context. The Nex prison, which is effectively the area before, like after you get through the frozen door, before you fight Nex, it's just an area full of Zarosian, ancient god, whatever stuff, right? Minions to kill. Just to get KC like every other God Wars boss. It was multi. They were really aggressive. They did a lot of damage. They had like crazy mechanics. They would generally kind of mess you up, right? And you needed to get 40 KC. That was a pain in the ass. So Ancient Ceremonial Robes was added to effectively just skip. I was like, okay, people don't want to do this content. Let's just get them in the room and so they can get some X immediately. We have changed that whole KC process quite significantly. So there are going to be multiple monsters where you'll get multiple essence, is what it's called now. So we're not referring to it as KC. Not that it was actually ever referred to as KC really in the game. I think it's just a combat achievements interface that actually referred to it. But it's essence, so you'll be able to get multiple things. You kill one, maybe you'll get 3 or 4 essence. So you'll have to kill significantly less of them, even though they are fairly chunky, fairly high effort. There'll be somewhat of a strategy there, where maybe these ones are weak to range, these ones are weak to mage, so then there's a bit more strategy in terms of what items you're actually bringing to get the KC, to be a bit faster. Obviously, combat achievements lowers the amount you actually need to get in the first place, if you've got any tiers of that unlocked. But the general point is, we're making that process a bit more enjoyable and not as tedious and brutal. So, and there's other things I've not mentioned as well, but that entire process has been looked into quite a lot. So we don't want you to just skip it. We're just making it better, so you don't feel like you want to skip it. Like, obviously getting KC is still slow and tedious, but that's kind of part of God Wars. I think it's fundamental to what God Wars is, and I think just allowing you to skip it is just not right. We've just put a lot of effort into making it not awful. And I hope it isn't awful, and obviously if you guys have got feedback once it's released that it's still just really, really unenjoyable, then fair enough. But I feel pretty confident that it's not going to be bad.
It's definitely part of the feel of God Wars content, right? It's the anticipation building up to getting into the boss room and fighting the boss. We're all quite fond of that. I know that the other game did something different. We don't have to copy them.
Cool. We haven't got too much long left, so I'm going to pull a couple more questions and then we'll go on to closing up the stream. So Corky16 asks, what's the feedback on the Godsword like? A lot of people, me included, feel it should be better for the content it's coming from, not just the specs, stats too.
I think it's a cool, unique special attack. I don't think it's directly usurping any current special attacks. the fact that it's got a minimum hit of 25, assuming you can pass accuracy, which you probably will, because Godswords are insanely accurate. And in PvP, it can be a 50 health swing, like 25 health, 25 damage minimum, assuming you can keep with your target. It's pretty nuts. Like claws generally hit like 40 to 60, I think, with a potential of like 84 or something crazy, like max melee. Something roughly like that. Don't quote me on it. But the fact that this has got like a minimum hit and it hits like the regular hit can still hit like high 60s, and then you got a minimum hit 25. It's a lot of damage that it still heals you. I think it's fine. It wasn't supposed to be this like crazy OP weapon or anything like that. I think it's just this cool little interesting special attack. It's not the main focus of the boss's reward table at all. She's already got a crazy reward table. I saw a comment there, it's a delayed hit, it's trash for PvP. I don't think that's true at all. It actually allows more combo potential. Like you can hit a 66 off the spec and get delayed burst of 25 and then combo that with like a fire surge or something. Like that's great burst damage. Like, just because it's delayed hit doesn't make it bad in PvP, it just makes it different. More flexibility. I always see special attacks as giving the players like a bunch of tools to do a lot of different stuff with, and then people figure out the best ways to use them.
I think as well, right? There's way more nuance to it. So, I mean, the first part I see a lot of people bring is we wanted like a tier 80, tier 85 Godsword, right? And that's just not how we decided to go with it. Mostly because like Zaros isn't like a stronger god than the others. He's just another god, right? We didn't see the need to power creep the Godsword. So that was a decision that we made. There's some players will disagree on that. So I think that's the first thing that is like, sorry, that's not the direction we went with. We wanted to make something on par to the other Godswords and have its own niche. With that aside, I think there's also clarification in the blog. It's not you attack, and if that person runs 6 tiles, they're free. They need to get like 6 tiles, 5 tiles away from where you are also currently doing, so you can chase them, right? So if they properly want to get away, they need to freeze and do it. So it's actually way more consistent in PvP than people think it is. And also, like, don't underestimate it in, like, PVM. People keep bringing up, oh, but SGS does prayer and stuff. But unless you're, like, camping proselyte and stuff, you're probably not always going to be on tasks that want to use prayer, or maybe you just want to do things a bit cheaper. And in cases where you're, like, just in full Bandos and stuff, like, a guaranteed, like, 50 healing every time you get that 100 spec, basically, because it's probably not going to miss, as long as you're not stupid and, hit, like, a 1 HP mob where the delayed effect isn't going to happen, right? That's pretty good. It's pretty consistent. Sometimes consistency beats out like the potential of an SGS, right? Because I know many of us have been on Slayer tasks, done like 2 SGS specs, healed like 20 health, and been like, God damn it, I hope I can survive till my next specs come up because I didn't bring much food. And as Arcane said, like the consistency of the damage is there. Like 60-ish max hit or something from the normal attack is like 30 average damage plus guaranteed 25. If accuracy is the same with this and claws, obviously disregarding claws are 4 taken, blah, 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 it's probably going to do more average damage per spec than claws will, right? So I think it's definitely being underplayed. But also, we're pretty confident in it right now. And a lot of players didn't beta test it. Some did. We buffed it since the beta test. And it's very much a case of, if this isn't sitting in a good place afterwards, let us know. Like, we obviously have post-release feedback things. We can, repoll, like, buffs to it and stuff. I think we did that with, like, some of the nightmare items, special attacks where they didn't quite land where we wanted and stuff. So, yeah.
I remember from that discussion as well, you mentioned... Sorry. I remember from that discussion you mentioned like a really interesting counterplay as well, where you, in order to counter that sword, you would have to freeze the target that is attacking you and run away. And I thought that was really interesting and something I would really like to see coming to the game.
Or alternatively, you freeze your opponent so they can't run away from you, right? And then you unleash the special attack while they're frozen, right?
It's very cool.
I think as Arcane said, like, special attacks are cool because they give, utility to how you're playing. So to figure, like, players will figure out the best ways to use it, and there'll be probably a plethora of other ways to use it, which would be cool. Just one thing I noticed in the chat, which I know Arcane answered, but I don't know if people saw it. Next, we'll be getting a mini quest with it. So just for those of you who, to make you aware. And for the final question, we will go, will Group Iron Men be able to join in on a group fight with Nex without losing group prestige?
No, it'll be the same as Nightmare.
There you go.
I'd like to take the next question because I saw it brought up like 4 or 5 times in chat more, and I've seen a lot of confusion about it as well. The question is, I'm having a little trouble understanding the bit about Nex being weak to crossbows. Does this mean something similar to Corp, where we're like enforcing crossbows only and that sort of stuff? The answer is no, right? We've done obviously some damage calculations and weighed up different range weapons against each other. I think the big one is like obviously we can control the magic level for T-bow and things like that. But I think the biggest reason why crossbows can shine in content and why crossbows are going to be meta than this is even if something is like slightly higher DPS potentially, I don't quite know where the numbers sit, but having shields is going to be really, really strong here, right? And that's kind of where crossbow niches sit. Like, we'll be very, very surprised if people aren't using like a Zaryte crossbow and an ACB here, right? Or an ACB here. And that's kind of the cool niche of that ranged weapon type, right? You know, you're never going to be able to compete with like crystal bow and T-bow against some bosses, but like in cases where you really want defense and you really want those longer trips, because otherwise like it will actually make a huge difference. And then on top of that as well, like part of the strength of crossbows, like if you looked at a lot of the equipment rebalancing graphs, there were places where like Armadillo crossbow was sitting a good bit above, like, you know, things like the bow of Ferdinand as at certain points, because if Nex has a lot of HP, right? You're getting like those 100s or 110s from a Zaryte crossbow from Rubies like pretty consistently throughout that fight, and that matters, right? That's a max hit potential that, you know, those other weapons can't hit, right? So there's lots of considerations. The gist of it is there's more to it. We'll hopefully see where you guys sit. Maybe metas will evolve and people won't use crossbows. We'd be very surprised if that wasn't the case, but no, there isn't like a hard set. Everything else does half damage. I don't think Nex was like that back in the day. I didn't play it. No one's mentioned it since testing it, and we're not, you know, forcing that on the content that you guys know from back in the day. And now everyone's panic buying, selling things based on what I've said or haven't said, and blah 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 blah. Have fun.
Yeah, the chat's
Merchers in chat.
I feel like that might have been a little bit expected, but heyo. Cool. Thank you all for answering the questions. I think it's been very, very informative about Nex. We have some more. Maybe we can roll some of these into parts of the blog, or maybe we can keep them over for another Q&A. Who knows? But before we wrap up, I think we'll just quickly go through the UGC. Mod Druid. The first one we've got is the birthday cake. That gnome child is terrifying. Not gonna lie, I just feel like it's staring into my soul.
Looks beautiful.
Looks like, yeah, I'd definitely eat it. Just scared.
He looks scared for his life. Like, can you just imagine holding a knife, getting ready to cut this cake, and this guy's looking up at you like, "Please, sir, I'm just a cake."
It would be just a giant looming over it with a giant knife coming down. Cool. So we have the next one from Pixley, which is Inquisitor Justiciar, which I think is pretty dope. It's pretty dope.
Love the blue and the red, like, so good. It's beautiful.
I want to see the same picture with a huge jacked Torva behind them, just like arms over each of them, like, you know, as if like, you know, bigger brother, younger brother thing now, you know.
Obviously, big top though, slim bottom.
Yeah, Torva skips leg day. You know, you just can't see his legs. You know, it's all like just massive, like anime style, like muscular arms and chest. You know.
Well, if you're listening, Pixley, then you know how that needs to be done. The next one we've got from Maz OZ, which is some fan art, cone art. It's pretty cool.
Women crush Wednesday, but it's not Wednesday. It's Badman. Very cool.
And then we've got some I Made Some Neat Things, as title this one, from Arcane Stars RS.
Oh, I remember those. Are they the things you used to iron? Like, you iron them together?
I think so.
Cool.
It's like real life pixel art, essentially. Very cool.
Yeah, love it.
And then the final one, which we also featured in the Gazette, today's Gazette, is keep. Oh no, it's not that one. It's another moling picture. Okay, there's a lot of mole love today. It's from Divided Storytime. Very cute. Very cute. Awesome.
Cute.
All right, that done. I'm going to quickly run through the announcements again, and then we will wrap up stream. So, exclamation mark game update. This week's update brings some small changes to the wilderness and some quality of life changes too. We're continuing to work as quickly as possible to bring out all the wilderness changes that we know you're eagerly awaiting on. In the meantime, why not try out the Rev Caves and see if you can grab some decent loot for yourself. Exclamation mark economy. Whether you're selling PVM drops, stocking up for your next PKN trip, or simply in the market for skill boosters, the economy underpins everything in old school for non-iron players, and we've been investigating ways to keep it healthy for many years to come. From item sinks to literal gold sinks, read the blog with exclamation mark economy for all the info on our proposed changes. Exclamation mark Melvor Idol. What do you AFK when you're playing old school? The obvious answer is Melvor Idol, a feature-rich RuneScape-inspired idle game that's now been supported and published by Jagex partners. You can find out more about the new partnership with exclamation mark Melvor Idol. And the final command, exclamation mark merch. RuneScape, the first 20 years, goes on sales at all good bookstores this week. If you missed out on the deluxe edition of the 20 years of RuneScape book, don't panic. You can now get your hands on this swanky red standard edition with the same 224 full color pages filled with illustrations and interviews. Definitely something for the Christmas list. And if you missed it at the start, the November edition of the Gazette is also out, so go over to the news site to check that out. And as this is her first stream, you can use exclamation mark new mod to go and follow Modlight on Twitter. And with that all out of the way, are there any final thoughts from all of you lovely people?
Tweet me if you have more questions about Nex.
There you go. There you go. Hit up Arcane.
Tweet him, not me.
Yeah, tweet. Hey. There. This guy. Awesome. Modlight, any final words?
Thank you for having me. This went faster than I thought. Oh my goodness, an hour just flew by, and it was a pleasure being here. So, thanks.
Good. We'll have to have you back for some more in the future, or maybe some hosting potential. Question mark.
Yes. I would love to do something really fun one day, so you might see a funny stream one day with like a Christmas fashion show. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah.
Awesome stuff. So again, thank you all for watching. It's been a pleasure. And we will see you in the next one. Have a good evening.
Bye.